Can give it a start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the breakthrough briefing on the 4-day working week. Today with us, we have two expert panelists, Dr. Bart Seil and Justin Kane, and in a minute, they will tell us more about the 4 days working week and what are the findings. Just to start with some introductions, Dr. Bart Seil is the founder and chairman of Breakthrough Global. He's a global authority in business culture, leadership, and innovation. And obviously, as already said, today with us, there is also Justin Kane. Justin Kane is the culture director at Breakthrough Global, and she partners with Zana Rayapchuk, our CEO, with our biggest clients, including JD, Beauty Health, Bell, and many more. We will hear from them in a second, so I will hand it over to you, Bart and Justin.
Thank you. So hello, everybody out there. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending where you are. And I also know that there's a few familiar faces out there who I know and we know. So welcome, and welcome to the people who see us for the first time. Justin.
Hi there, thanks Bart, and thanks so much for joining us today. We're really excited about this subject, so we're delighted that you're able to join us for this next hour. So I guess the conversation that has arisen with the 4-day week is very topical at the moment. It's obviously become more topical due to COVID times and flexible working and the benefits of flexible working. And then obviously in the pilots that have just been released, the results of the pilot that has just been released in January for the biggest UK and global pilot that's ever been done on the 4-day working week is very topical right now, and something that we are getting asked about very regularly, and we are now working a lot with clients to help them navigate these new waters. So I think, Bart, you've actually got quite a lot of extensive experience on this that dates back pre the pilots that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a great believer in, well, whether it's the 4-day week, flexibility. So one of the things in my career, or my several careers, is that the more flexible the workplace has been, I've always found it more fun to start with, but also more productive. And when I was thinking about this, it was, I think it was Henry Ford who brought in the 5-day work week. That was a while ago. And now, as you say, COVID has been a sort of an accelerator or a catalyst. And now more people are looking at the 4-day work week, but it's been around for a while. And I can remember back in the late 80s when I was working at Unilever, that we were all on what was called then flexi time. And flexi time, it wasn't as flexible as a 4-day week because you still had to work 40 hours, but you could have a week off. So if you put your 40 hours into 4 days, then you could have a day off. And I certainly took advantage of that. Many people did. And I think even if you did or you didn't, whether you took a day or you took half a day or you just had it flexible around the 5 days you were in, there was this sense of freedom, and also a sense of that I'm more in control. And I can remember that because I moved from that company, Unilever, to another which was no longer flexible, and I can remember being really affected by that. And so, that was just the psychological effect of it, but a feeling that I'm no longer in control. And that was really important to me. And in fact, I left that company very quickly after that. So we are in a place where the workplace is just evolving so rapidly. And there's this shift towards flexible work, whether it is 4 days, whether it is working from home, whether it is remote work. And I can't see this. There's still some people saying, well, will it go back? It's not going to go back. I'm a photographer, and I can remember when digital first came in, and there was a big conversation, well, it won't last, and so on. And now it's all digital. This is one of those things, one of those trends that will become a transformation in the way we look at work. And there's a lot of companies experimented with it. There's some that started full time in the early 2000s, before COVID. And as I say, it is going to continue. So the reason we want to do this is because we've had experience. We've also done some research for this, and we're opening it up to all of our colleagues and all of our clients. And if you want to follow this up on a one-on-one, we really welcome you to do that and look at where we can help you either with advice or actually with something much more programmed.
Yeah, I think that your experience of it is just totally resonates, Bart, because I think it's very much in line with the findings of the pilots that have been done, and that makes it I guess even more valuable. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about the pilot, the big global UK pilot that's been done. I say global UK, it was done in the UK, but all eyes globally are talking about specifically this pilot. So the pilot that we're talking about started in June 22, went through to December 22, and included 61 companies. And those companies varied in the type of companies they were, as in they were marketing companies, big financial companies, restaurants, so all different types of organizations. And I guess the requirement was that they were trying not for the employees to fit 5 days into 4 days. So I know that's what you mentioned that you did with Unilever, but the pilot really focused on staying away from that. And the premise is a model that they call 100, 80, 100. So essentially, the premise was to reduce the working hours, encourage participants to be more productive with their time, i.e., less time wasting tasks, but then having 100% productivity. So what I mean by that is 100% of salary, 80% of the time, yet 100% productivity. So the actual findings of it are actually fascinating, really fascinating. So 92% of companies continue now with their shorter hours. 73% are happier employees. Drop in the requested 6 days has gone down by 65%. A drop in the reported burnout by 71%. A drop in reporting sleeping issues, 40%. And it goes on. So, there's resignation results, there's increase in employee retention, there's differences of male and female employees, how they've both responded to having more time with their children. And actually revenue, which is the bit that I think a lot of companies have had a close eye on, has gone up by 1.4%, which is an amazing result, because that's huge, right? Specifically for companies that perhaps might need some encouragement and persuasion, I think that sort of speaks volumes. And there was a general increase in productivity and efficiency, but also a notable reduction in carbon footprint. So the findings have been, super interesting. And that's why I keep saying global UK pilot, because all eyes are on what's been happening with this pilot. There's been lots of other pilots taking place globally, but I guess what would be interesting for us is to ask you a few questions with a poll, first of all. I think Agnese was going to do that. So over to you, Agnese.
Thank you very much, Justine. In a moment, you'll see some polls popping up on your screen, and we will be able to see the different results and share it with you as well.
So are you currently adopting a 4-day work week?
Some of the answers are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how these are coming in fast. Let's give it another couple of seconds for everyone to figure out how to answer the poll. I'll end the poll now, but I'll also share the results with you. And as you can see now, the question was, are you adopting a 4-day working week at your workplace at the moment? There is a 60% of yes and 40% of no. So it's quite interesting. What do you think, Justin and Bart?
I think that's fair. That's Bart. I think I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I think that's really interesting results, because I think that says quite a lot that it's happening already quite significantly. I would have guessed slightly lower than that. So I think that's actually very encouraging, that there's a lot of forward thinking happening out there with companies who are really taking on the results of the different findings and thinking about actually, you know, not only productivity goes up, but the well-being of our employees are going up, and there's a million other different benefits, you know, alongside the carbon footprinting, etc. So I'm very encouraged by those results, actually, very encouraged.
Yeah, that's indeed quite good.
Do we have another poll question, or can I?
But if you have some comments, but there is definitely another poll question.
Go ahead.
We have a poll question for the people that are not adopting a 4-day week at the moment. You can see it on your screens. I can see that the answers are coming in. Let's give it another couple of seconds. And I will also share the results with you. So this question was mainly addressing the issue of not being able to adopt a 4-day week. If you're not adopting a 4-day week, are you planning to? And the results, I think, also in this case are quite good. 25% is planning to adopt a 4-day week out of those participants that are not adopting it yet, but 75% aren't yet. There is another question before I leave it back to Bart and Justine on why you might be concerned about the 4-day week and what could be the impact in your business. And you can see it on screen now. So let's give it a couple of seconds for everyone to respond. The answers are coming in. I'll end the poll now and sharing the results. As you can see, the question was, what is stopping you from adopting a 4-day working week? And there's mainly been 3 questions. It will be interesting to know the 25% that said other, but then there is a 50% lack of alignment within senior leadership and 25% fear of impact on revenues. Probably some of the results and the findings of the pilot, as Justine said, clarified that the revenue increase is actually there. But I'd like to hear from you, Bart and Justine, on also what do you think about the alignment within the senior leadership that has to be there to lead to the 4-day working week?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of the key fears. And I think that the pilot that Justine talked about is very optimistic, showing that and giving proof that you can do this. It doesn't mean to say it will happen. You've got to be very, very intentional about doing this. And then you need to actually do it in the right way and implement it in the right way. And I think there's a lot of companies who fear starting it because of their belief systems that people are going to be less productive, that it's going to be difficult to manage and so on. But we'll come on to that because there's ways around that. But I'm very interested in the fact that that not only can you sustain your productivity with a 4-day week, you can actually increase it. And that's been something that I've been thinking about. How could we increase our productivity. And I think that I've come to a conclusion that by putting a restraint on that, like the 4-day week, we need to transform our company so eventually it becomes more effective, more efficient, and more successful. And that's the way it's done. So you have to shift things, you have to transform things. You can't just do the things you were doing with your 5-day week and expect that this is going to help. You've got to change the way you do things, and that's why.
I think it's also, Bart, worth noting that it's super interesting to hear how relevant this is to for businesses to transition to 4-day weeks. But there are some businesses too, right, that don't necessarily suit this. So, you know, if you're on a 0 hours contract, for example, or if you work for a hospital or, you know, social workers or transport services, etc., you know, it's difficult for these kind of models to really work. But on the whole, the points that you're making, I think, work for most companies and make a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think that if we look back, it's our 30th year this year in Breakthrough. And one of the things that we started with, and now we've got much better at it, is actually helping companies to become more productive, more efficient, more effective. Not just companies, but teams within the companies and individuals. And I think that's why this is an ideal area for us, because if I go back to a program I did in the 2000s, the CEO of that program, it was quite a long program, it was over 3 years. And what he said to me is, he said, you should call your program the 5 quarters program. Why? And he said, because by doing your program, it's as if we have 5 quarters of results in a year, because we've become more effective, more productive, and more efficient.
Right.
It's great feedback for us, but that's how he saw that. And if you think about it, 5 quarters, 5 virtual quarters in 4 real quarters, 5 virtual days in 4 real days. That's why I'm so excited about this. But thinking about that, why would that occur? Because, you know, the test that the pilot that you've shown, and the research that I've done, and the experience we've had, why would productivity increase? There's a lot of great reasons. So the 4-day week, it isn't just driven by what happened with COVID. That was the accelerator, but it's also driven by some other things that are happening in the workplace. A big one is work-life balance, and people wanting to really get hold of that. I've always said in the past that work-life balance is actually a competence, and you know, the individual needs to learn how to do it. But there are some things that the company can do as well. And I think the 4-day week is an ideal way that you can improve work-life balance. There's also what I said my experience was an increased job satisfaction. And if you've got an increased job satisfaction, then you're more satisfied with your job, and that's more likely to improve results. Reduced absenteeism. I don't know whether that came out in the pilot, but I know that some companies have seen an absolute reduction in that. And absenteeism is a big cost to the company and to the country. A more efficient use of time and better time management. And so becoming more productive in a 4-day, you learn skills that help the business in itself. Help it to sustain those results. There's improved teamwork, or rather there can be, or there can be the opposite of that. And that's why it has to be carefully implemented, carefully led. There's a big leadership responsibility in getting something that really works from this, because it is a big commitment to go to the 4-day week.
And the benefit, Bart, is with the global war on talent that we're all having, you know, to encourage new workers to the market. So those that could potentially carers that could only do 4 days a week, or those that were retired, or or actually just having a competitive edge over your competitors to attract your talent. It's an amazing tool to overcome the global war on talent that we're having. And I think it's undoubtedly making a huge sway of talent deciding yes or no, or okay, I want this in my workplace now. Therefore, I'm attracted to those opportunities that will present that.
And we know that from our company. So people are actively seeking, top talent are actively now saying, I don't want this. This is moving accordingly. So you're right. It's an incredible advantage for that. But then there's sort of improved employee health, reduced burnout, and better mental health. All that can come from this, and increased employee engagement. So when you look at all of those things and you add them together, it's like, we talk about the 1 degree shift. Each one of those is a 1 degree shift, which adds and multiplies to give you a big output.
And what do you mean by the 1 degree shift, Bart, for those that haven't necessarily been that familiar with it?
Right. So the 1 degree shift is that if there's an outcome you want or a direction you want to take, you don't have to do the actual. Imagine that you're on a course, and you realize that the course that you're on isn't taking you to where you want to go, and it needs, say, a 90 degree shift. Well, that's a big shift. This is whether you're running a business or it's in your life, you need to make that big shift. What we say is you don't have to make that big shift to start with. What you do is take a small shift that's doable, and take that shift and then consolidate. And once you're on that course, then take another shift and another shift and another shift. And eventually you will get to your 90 degrees if that's what you want to do. So that's the idea of that small changes and small differences, if you take them consistently, will build on each other and produce what could be an exponential result.
And if we're applying that to the 4-day work week, what kind of 1 degree shifts do you think we could potentially encourage companies to make?
Well, I think that the 1 degree shifts I don't mean that in terms of the time you're working. So what I mean by that is if you do go from 5 to 4 days, you want to retain your productivity, your effectiveness, and so on. Then there's a lot of 1 degree shifts in the way you go about your business and the way your teams work and the way individuals work that can combine to create that. You've lost 20% of time, but you can make that up so that your productivity is the same or better. And there's 2 sort of human laws that I've been thinking about. The first one is Parkinson's law, and Parkinson's law, or Parkinson's principle. What he said is that work expands to fill the time you have available. And we know this from the program because we have a concept called power time, and we get people to do a diagnosis of the current reality of their business. And we often say, how long do you need to do that? We give them the exercise. How long do you need to do that? And some people will say, oh, the rest of the day, or an hour, or 2 hours. And we say, well, you've got 20 minutes. And usually, eyes roll and there's gasps if they're not used to how we work. But they do it. They do it for 20 minutes because we give them some new principles of how to use time and how to work within a time frame like that. And the things to stop so that you're not wasting time. So actually, if you think of a 5-day week and work expands to fill the time available, then if we can reverse that, we can cut down the time available, but still insist on the same outcomes. People will find a way of doing it. I mean, you can't do that with everything, for instance. So you couldn't do that with pregnancy. Right? There's some things that need a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
my experience in the workplace is that we could easily do that. So that's the first thing that's going on anyway. The Parkinson principle. And the other one is the Pareto principle. Sorry about these names, but that's the 80-20. That's the 80-20 rule. That actually, you know, we create 80% of our useful results from 20% of the work that we do. And that can be shown across all sorts of things. So again, if we look at that and we work to find that 20%, already we've cut our time down and we've increased our effectiveness or our efficiency.
Mm.
I think
that
relates to the ratio you talked about.
There is actually a question from one of the attendees. So just as a reminder, all the attendees can type down questions in the Q&A and I will read them out to Bart and Justine as they come out. But there was a question about the 6 half-day working week. So what about 6 half-day working? Is this a 3-day week? And I think apart from your considerations around this, it's interesting to see that flexibility and probably the flexibility element that you, Bart, mentioned at the beginning in your experience, but also the link to different needs in the pool of talent, as Justine mentioned as well. So what do you think of a potential 3-day week with 6 half days, I believe? Yeah.
Well, I think, here's what I think. I think it depends on your business and it depends on what you're producing and how you're going about that. That might work for some people. And I think what you've got to do is start to experiment in this. I mean, you could experiment with, you do your own pilot study with how that would work. But I think you also need to be flexible that if it isn't working, you change it and you do something else. And I think the other thing that I would bring in from our breakthrough work is that when you start on an initiative like this, then expect what we call the dip. So whenever you take a new course in your life or in your business, the chances are that at the start of that shift and that change or that transformation, your results will be worse than they were before. So imagine this, some of our audience out there, you know, have you ever been coached in a sport? So imagine tennis, for instance. And my partner has been coached in tennis. She's a tennis player. She loves tennis. And when she got a new coach to coach her in tennis, actually she felt she was getting worse to start with. And this happens a lot, certainly happens in sport, and it happens in business. I've seen it so many times in business. It happens with our clients as we're going through a breakthrough program. When they start on a major transformation, their results can get less. And the reason for this is that to do something new, you need to learn how to do it. But also, you need to unlearn what you've been doing. So you've reached a plateau in performance in some way. It might be tennis, it might be your business, it might be something else. You've got to that plateau and you realize, you know, I've got to get off this plateau. I've got to increase my growth again. I've got to accelerate. I've got to do something. And so we expect that by making that intervention, then we'll be off, blast off. But actually, our results get worse because we've got all this new stuff that we're learning and trying to implement, but we're also sticking and attached to the old stuff. And it's only when we've finally got rid and let go of the old stuff and all of our energy is in the new stuff that we then start to take off. So we call that the dip. So there's 3 principles, you know, look at Parkinson's law and shorten your times. Look at the 80-20 rule and find that 20% and be prepared for the dip. And the more times you go through a dip, then the faster you get at going through it. But what's very tempting, if this is the first time it's happened, is to say, you know, that decision, that initiative was wrong. because we've started out on it and actually we're getting worse results. So let's go back to how we were.
The key word is trial, isn't it? And I think just as it's been piloted in several countries and we've got the results from it, I think this is to trial it. So, Unilever, for example, they expanded their four-day work week trial into Australia after having successful trial in New Zealand. So, they had strong results against their business targets, their revenue growth, the majority of staff feeling more engaged, and as we said, absenteeism dropping. But they've had to tweak it so that it works within the company model that works for them. So I think the way they have done it is trialed it in a country which they know that they then can roll it out into other territories, which makes lots of sense. And I think that is generally the trend that is happening at the moment. So, Australia may be doing a 4-day national trial to see if it improves the life of those juggling and caring responsibilities at home. So Belgium, for example, those two, they're introducing a bill they introduced a bill in November allowing employees to decide whether they work a 4 or a 5-day week. And that's not just condensing the work week into a few hours. So, there's lots of territories, Iceland, Sweden, Spain, Japan, Scotland, I think everybody's trialing it to see how it best works in their areas. And I think it's unlikely to think that a government would mandate the requirement of 4-day working week, because I think the solutions have to be bespoke to the different companies. So, but it is interesting to see and to learn from the different models that are happening, so that when you do your own trial, you're able to pick and choose the bits that are really working.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The thing about it, whether you're actually about to start, whether you're actually involved in it, or whether you are wondering whether we should do it, there are some lessons about how you can implement this, and the things that you've got to avoid and the things that you've got to be mindful. And, so one of the things is that communication is so important, that clear communication about what's happening, what the new responsibilities are, how it's going to affect people, and so on. The more that you can communicate, the more you can be transparent, then the quicker the result, or the beneficial result. I've already talked about flexibility, and that's flexibility from everyone, actually, from the teams, from the individuals, but also from management as well. And that flexibility to say, we've got to keep going, or the flexibility that this probably isn't right, but let's tweak it a bit, like you said. Just
I think, sorry, I interrupted you, Bart. Go ahead.
Goal setting, and particularly, one of the things that we work with our clients to do is to shift them from so many companies out there are input oriented. And I think that's one of the big issues around this, and why some companies are reluctant to do it, because they've got an input mindset. And the input mindset is, well, people are doing 5 days a week. It's like, how many days a week are you doing? That's the input. How much work are you doing? That's the input. But what we really need to be is shift it to output thinking. What's the outcome? How can we get that outcome? If we do go to a 4-day week, how can we ensure that we're getting the same outcomes or even better? And we need to change things to do that. So that shift in mindset. And also within that, when you're setting the outcomes or the goals, to be much more rigorous and clear and measurable about that. And that brings me to another part of it, that much more measurement, because the more you measure, if you don't measure it, you can't move it. If you can't move it, you can't manage it. So more measures, and measures that are really relevant to that. Technology is the big helper here, and it's another thing that's driving 4-day week anyway. So the well-being movement is, and the work-life balance moving is one of the drivers. Technology is another driver. So really having being open to the technology that's out there and not resistant to that. The other thing is, one thing I saw with a lot of the companies that are now happy that they did this and glad that they did it, is they brought their employees in at the very start. That the employees were part of the discussion. They've got most of the innovation in the company anyway, so they are the ones that can tell you how to do it. You know, if you're a leader, you can talk about what to do. Your teams and your associates and so on will find the way of how to do it. Also, they saw that they got much better at prioritization, because if you've got a shorter work week, then it's so important that you prioritize your tasks and so on, so that they are the most relevant. You know, we have a concept which I know some of you out there have heard us talk about, called failure work. And there's so much failure work that goes on. If we could get rid of the failure work, maybe we could do the 3-day week that was mentioned. Because there is a lot of work that's being done that is wasted. It is failure work. It's stuff that it shouldn't be happening now. We should have learned the first time we did it, the mistakes that we got, so we don't make that failure work again. And a big one is trust. And I think that comes back to how I started this about, you know, lessons learned. The input mindset, and I think management and leadership that really don't trust their people. So they've got to have them in at the desk, in the office, on the clock. That level of trust is not going to work with this.
No,
not at all. And by the way, your employees and associates can see that anyway.
absolutely.
But it's quite interesting that you mentioned how a lot of the companies that have been part of the trial brought in their employees at the beginning. So there was a communal conversation, a debate. I'm mindful of that question and that result at the beginning. So a lot of people had problems in implementing the 4-day week because lack of alignment in the leadership. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the other way? So not top down, but bottom up. What could employees do to really push leadership into implementing the 4-day week and probably having a different level of conversation and a different direction of that conversation?
Then go on strike.
They're very British.
Well, I think my view is it isn't bottom up or top down. It's both ways, and that the top down can be involved in a more strategic way, helping with priorities and so on. But the bottom up is involved in how we succeed at this, and how we can change things. But communication, not us and them. I think that's the way I would answer that question.
Perfect. There's also another couple of questions that came up in the Q&A section. So I'm really encouraging all the attendees to send any question or comment if you have any. But one of the question is, COVID helped with flexible working arrangements, but it seems there is pressure to go back to office working now. How will the 4-day week play in this scenario?
Well, in one way, who knows? And I think we'll get lots of different models. In our experience, breakthrough. So when COVID hit, it hit our business very hard, because those that know us, you know what our business was based on. It was based on face-to-face, intensive work together, off-site in a hotel. None of that could be done. So in February or March 2020, we actually had we had a great calendar going forward for 2020, and it disappeared almost overnight. It just disappeared. So we got into action, and I think the word then was pivot. We all got to pivot. Everybody was pivoting. Do you remember the pivot? And we created our virtual program, and that started to work. We changed our physical offices and so on, so that we've now got a fantastic studio, which we can do those virtual programs. And then the other thing we did is that because all of our work had gone, we reduced our work to 2 days a week at that point. Now, very quickly, we started to develop more and more virtual work, and so we expanded that. And at one time, we were doing the 4-day week, and some of us in the company still are doing the 4-day week. So we've got a hybrid company where some are working a 4-day week, some are doing 5 days. And the reason we went to 5 days is because we started to get more and more work in. We're now doing better than we were before COVID. But we have the intention as soon as possible to go to that 4-day week for everybody. We've also got working from home, but we've also got working in place. So the way we do it is we've got 2 days working in place, and there's a commitment that everybody comes in those 2 days. And that's been working fantastically because it gives you the teamwork, and it also keeps your culture going. Because it's very difficult to keep culture going if you're all working from home. It becomes a different type of culture. So we've got that, and we've got the hybrid programs now. So where we used to have physical intensive off-site programs, we still have those, and we offer those, and there's more and more companies want those now. And I think they want them because they're doing so much now remote stuff and virtual stuff that for them it's refreshing, and they see that there's completely different things they can get from a physical program. But we also have the virtual offerings, and actually the hybrid program is both of those. So the intensive can be a physical intensive of 3 days, and then the accelerators, which used to be again physical accelerators, now they can be virtual. So there you are, you're saving on travel, you're saving on venue costs and so on. So that, I say it's 3 types of hybrid that we have in Breakthrough.
Thank you, Bart. And I think what you said is very relevant, because the next question is actually, how can Breakthrough help us in implementing a 4-day week? You did mention some of those things, but I was wondering if you have any additional tools.
Well, yeah, we've got tools. I mean, that's one thing. But if you want to implement the 4-day week, or you are implementing and it's not working the way you want, then Breakthrough tools can really help you. Because Breakthrough tools enable people, not just people, they enable individuals, teams, and organizations to transform themselves, to actually become more innovative, to become more effective, and to really create a powerful future that they can get to in the shortest possible time. So we've got a lot of tools around all of that. And some of the ones I've mentioned, so, the power time, where you start to use time in a very different, powerful way so that it works for you rather than you working for it. The idea of identifying and get rid of failure work, the better communication, all of those tools. And any of you who are interested in it, please contact us, and we can go through some of these things without any commitments. We're just happy to talk about the work that we do.
I think it also ties into the healthy organization, well-being, work that a lot of companies are now doing, and we're supporting companies more now from a healthy organization perspective, and it ties in with that really well, right?
Yeah, well, those in the audience that have worked with us on a Breakthrough program, a Breakthrough intensive, probably what you don't know is that we've got a program called the Healthy Organization. And actually, if you've done Breakthrough before, you're further along in that program already before you even start. But yeah, the whole idea of that is to enable companies to actually become healthier companies. You see, the Healthy Organization years ago, I think it was McKinsey that brought it in. and they just talked about financial health. What we've done is we've created a healthy organization, which is about a healthy culture, healthy organization, healthy communication, healthy teamwork, and by that it means that it's creating a company that where the environment is healthier, where the culture and the way it operates is healthier, where people can get a really good work-life balance and have the tools to help their well-being. And actually, it has a societal and an environmental output that it becomes healthier in how it exists within the environments and within the world. So that's the healthy organization.
Mm-hmm. Agnese, do we have any other questions?
There's no other question coming up, but I'm also mindful of the time. And I have to say, all our attendees are still there listening to us. So I think they're all very engaged and interested. But we have roughly, I would say, 14 minutes before the end of this hour together talking about the 4 days week. So I was actually wondering about some final remarks and probably some actions that you want to implement to go towards that idea for both you, Bart and Justine.
Well, one thing I'd like to share is you know, some of the challenges and the obstacles to implement this that you may already have felt, or that, you know, if you're starting out on this, watch for these. That one of the big obstacles to implementing the 4 day week, or any flexible working. I mean, it may not, we're calling it the 4 day week, but you may have your own version of that. And actually, just back to one of the other questions, you don't need to go fully to a 4 day week. You can trial it. You can have 1 day a month, see what that works like and what that particular work week did look like. And as you trial it, if it's a big company, they need to do that trial with smaller groups, get it worked out before they then roll it out across the whole organization. But
Otter's doing that at the moment. They're doing every other Friday.
Yeah, it would be the way in, and that's another idea of the 1 degree shift, rather than, all right, we 5 days this week, we 4 days next week forever.
Yeah,
for people. You know, that is going to create a lot of chaos, and in that chaos, you may lose your belief that this is the way to go. But some of the obstacles is the one we find with everything. It's the resistance to change. You know, it's inbuilt into human beings, and it's inbuilt into groups of humans. So it is a change management task to do this, and you know, you'll get challenges around scheduling, because you'll almost or unconsciously work with your current scheduling methods. Once you've got a 4 day week, and is it everybody working the same 4 days, or is it flexible around, you can have 1 day? You know, you need to decide all that, but all of that is going to create, you know, challenges around the way you schedule, which you've got to learn your way through. Like I said earlier, communication, and coordination of that, particularly as you're building, because you're building you know, a new way of working. And so you need a lot of communication. You need to over communicate, in a sense. Another challenge is overworking, because I think some companies and some leaders and some managers, they think that going to a 4 day week, then people have to work harder, and they get overloaded. So if you don't do anything to change the way you work, so that you're not working harder, but you're working smarter, what you'll end up is just really whipping people to produce as much or more in less time. And that isn't sustainable, isn't enjoyable, isn't successful in the long run.
It's not the 100-80-100 model.
No. But again, even with that model, you've got to learn your way into it.
You
know, you can, because like I said earlier, the dip where you've got some reduced productivity, you need to look at that, find it, see it, and put it right, and not think, well, this was a wrong decision.
Transition.
Transition. Customer expectations. If you're a customer, and every company has customers or clients, and even internal customers, there'll be expectations around that which you need to manage. I don't know whether you've experienced this, but certainly with COVID and the COVID aftermath, customer service is awful now. You put on a line and you get the apologetic voicemail saying, because of this and because of that, it's going to take 5 days to answer your call or something. And people get impatient with that, and they get bored with it, and they get sick of it. So again, that would be something to watch and to manage, and to make sure that you're not disappointing your customers with this. And some customers will be open and tolerant as you move your way through this, so long as they can see that you are moving your way through for good intentions. Reduced pay, that's a big fear of employees coming into this, because not everybody is using the model that you shared. Some people are going to 4 days a week and saying, and we'll pay you 4 days a week. What that does actually is that probably reduces productivity. And then you've got people on a 4-day week, then you have to employ more to create the results that you want. So it's like it's a false saving. Then and I know nothing about this, but there's compliance with labor laws, depending which country you're in. And that's an area which needs navigating. And I would think that could be a minefield as well. And in the same way of really coordinating with your customers during this change, during this transition, coordinating with your vendors and your suppliers as well, because it will upset their schedule as well. And we want to minimize that and move through that as quickly as possible. Employee morale. This is an area where you can increase morale, or it can go down the drain. So again, keeping an eye on that, keeping your finger on the pulse, and keeping communicating, which is why actually having your employees involved in this is the best way to do it.
360 communication.
Yeah. Okay.
Agnes, any other questions now?
There is a question around productivity. So how the breakthrough program can help with more productivity, and probably is linked to some of the things that you, Bart, mentioned.
Yeah, well, did that question come in before I answered that?
Yeah.
Because I've answered that question. And again, for everybody out there, if you need a more detailed answer, or you want to get in touch with us on a one-on-one, please do that. How would they get in touch with us to follow up on this?
You can definitely write at contact@breakthroughglobal.com, and then someone from our team will get in touch with you. So I'm sure that if there is any further question, that can be done as well.
Yeah, or if it's a question for me, I'm bart@breakthroughglobal.com. Send me an email.
Or LinkedIn, you can get any of us on
LinkedIn. Yeah. Just say you were on the on the briefing and you've got this follow-up question.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good way to finish. Any final remarks from you in these last 5 minutes that we have to conclude our hour together?
I think be brave, because it's a change. And as we were saying earlier, there's different aptitudes, or not different levels of comfort with change. And I think this doesn't have to be a one foul swoop, change to your business, but trialing it, keeping the communication going from a 360 model is, it's going to create fantastic results. That's all we're hearing left, right and center from, pilots that are being done globally, but also from clients that are also trialing it. And it's a solution to lots of problems, from health and well-being, from talent, from productivity, to lots of other benefits. So I think it is, be brave, and we're happy to help you navigate it if you would like to chat about it more. But it's the way the world is evolving with technology, with AI, with everything that's going on right now. This is part and parcel of all of it. So we are here to help you should you need it. But yeah, look forward to hearing how you get on.
And I'd like to leave you with the thoughts I'm having now about this, that this is not something, it's not a loss. It's something that you gain by doing this, and actually by recreating your business so that it operates in 4 days, that it creates in 4 days what it used to create in 5, you're going to have a better business. It's just going to be it's like, it's going to be, it's like an athlete. It's going to be a better athlete, because of the shifts that you go through, the things that you change, the new training that you do, and you've just got a better business entity at the end of it. So it's not for every business, but if it's for yours, go for it.
I think these are two wonderful remarks to conclude our briefing. So thank you everyone for attending. As Bart and Justine said, you can always contact us and reach out on LinkedIn as well, especially if you've been attending this briefing and you want some additional thoughts on the 4-day week. But keep following us, and thank you all for joining us. Have a lovely day all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.